open line. Glad you were with us, talking about something that happens every 10 years, redistricting. And it's really about to heat up as far as that goes. The boundaries are going to be drawn. They must be drawn by really April of next year, the congressional boundaries. The legislature is responsible for doing this. They have the census data. It's all in. And we have with us two people via Zoom that are interested and very focused on what the process of redrawing these voting districts, how it will be done and what it will look like. And we have Mary Ann Reeves with the League of Women Voters, Kendra Lee with Equity Alliance, and we have some more calls. So let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Evelyn. Hello, Evelyn.
Yes.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
I agree with one of the last caller's points. Undocumented should not receive the same representation. That's built-in gerrymandering, in my estimation, built in. And furthermore, after the last 9 months, what we've all seen, we're hoping that the Republican legislature gerrymanders all they want. Cooper needs to go, and we don't need this many city councilmen either. Those are my comments.
We do have a lot of Metro councilmen. That's another issue. Okay, obviously, somebody who wants to see more Republican representation and all of that. Cooper needs to go. I guess what Kendra Lee, comment on whatever you want to from that call.
I think that if you want competitiveness in a district, you want to make sure that it's fair and square. So if you want a certain person to be out of office, do what the rest of us do. Organize, get you a good candidate, make some phone calls, knock some doors, but don't take advantage of a political system to manipulate the way that we do things. And so if you want to be able to have that competitiveness there, we know that there is a way to be able to go about it. And we just want to make sure that we have clarity and make sure that we have equity in how we do the process.
And then she also said there are too many Metro Council members. That is something that's been discussed, but this isn't the way that would be addressed, right? I mean, the Metro Council itself would have to cut the number of council districts. It's not done in redistricting or through the census. Is that right, or am I off there?
That is correct.
Yes, and so I mean, if they wanted to choose how they drew their districts, then yes, but the process of being able to account for how many are there is going to be up to them. I also live in Memphis, where we have two governments, so I don't know if there's much that I can be able to say on that, given the fact that we have two fully functioning governments ourselves, so I can't necessarily knock what Metro has going on.
Now, what would you like to see happen? I guess I'll ask you both this. So we've kind of laid out the timeline. The legislature is getting to work now, and in the local governments, they're getting to work. Local governments have to have something, I think you said, by January, the legislature with these congressional districts by April. So time is becoming of the essence here. So let's say I'm a person, I'm watching this and I'm concerned and I want to follow it. What do you recommend somebody do, and what would you ask that people do? And I'll start with you, Kendra Lee, and then go to Mary Ann.
So I will say that Nashville government gets a gold star. If you go to NashvilleRedistricting.gov, there's already a website that's there. And I believe they launched it a few weeks ago. You are able to have input, as Mary talked about at first, about the communities of interest, getting the updates and when to expect those maps to be available. So I sincerely appreciate that they have already had that up and running. And I mentioned this before, as though I shouldn't be so surprised. Like, that sort of transparency and preparation should be the standard for our government agencies and not necessarily the exception. So I am very happy that they are being able to have that information that's there. So if you do want to be able to keep up with the process, go to NashvilleRedistricting.gov, sign up for the email updates, and make sure that you are privy to the information that's being put out there, and also just keeping up what's happening at your local level. So when you do talk about your school boards and when you talk about, even with the information from the redistricting that happens with your election commission and they decide which precincts go on in which neighborhoods, I think that when we talk about accountability and transparency, we really just want to make sure that we're having community conversations and community output at the state and at the very local level as well.
Okay, and what would you like to see, Marianne?
Well, very much the same things that Kendra would like to see. The league has spent this past year educating the public, which I think is very important. I mean, based on just the conversations we've had tonight with your guest, we've been putting on webinars and we've got slideshows, and I believe Kendra's organization probably is doing a very similar thing. I know that citizens can feel very frustrated by the process, but it's very important that they get involved, educate themselves. Please call your legislators. It's amazing at how much attention that they do pay because they get very little of this. I would not recommend sending letters. I would recommend sending emails. It takes too long to get a letter through any legislature's security system.
Okay, so email, call if you have an opinion. And then if you want to watch this, you're not sure on the legislative level, you're just not sure yet how that's going to happen, right? I guess we know what committees, but we don't really know much more than that. Is that accurate?
Yes, and if people want more information, they can go to the League of Women Voters Tennessee. That's lwvtn.org. We have recordings of all the webinars that we put in, which go through the entire process. Communities of interest seminars. We have how that's done. It's a wealth of information that's on that. We will also be putting up a toolbox very shortly that people can get, and that toolbox will give them templates on letters to write, op-eds for newspapers, etc.
Let's go to Carolyn. Hello, Carolyn.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Well, I feel that with this redistricting, it's definitely discrimination. And you see it, unfortunately, the governor we have at this time, where he's mandating with executive orders that shouldn't be done. It should be left to the school districts and the local mayors and the people in those particular avenues. And you do redistricting just to side with one party, that is not fair. We're dealing right now with a pandemic. We're also dealing with students. I have grandchildren in school, and I know one school in particular, which is McGavick. I did call it out. 40 students went home today because they exposed to COVID, and they did very well on virtual learning. But due to his executive order, he states that no one can activate virtual learning. And then he also threatens people about you not getting money for your school district. I think that should be left in the local hands. It's already set up, and we don't need one party to tell us which way to do things.
Okay.
Thank you.
Carolyn, thank you. So that's a little off topic. It's a little bit like what we were talking about last night, but it points to how important this is, right? I mean, what would you say to what she's saying, Kendra Lee?
So I think that to grab some relevancy out of the comment, when you do think about like the census data and why it's important in getting federal dollars to be in certain districts, so you do consider those things there. But she was correct in saying that effectively there is a controlling party in the state legislature over this redistricting process. And so we just want to be able to make sure that it's not necessarily about partisanship, but it's just about doing the right thing the right way. It shouldn't matter who's in charge. If we know that a process is supposed to happen a particular way, if you know that you owe a responsibility to your constituents to let them know what's going on, just do it. We shouldn't have to pull teeth to know a timeline or to know when things are happening or to get basic information that you were sworn in to give us as citizens of Tennessee and of these districts. And so we just want to make sure that this is happening the right way. And so that is why we continue to have a call of action for accountability from our General Assembly and our state legislators. We demand to know what's going on. We don't want, the wool to be pulled over our eyes. We don't want a sneaky process with backdoor deals happening, under the table. We want to see everything that's happening. We want to see it ahead of time. Want to be able to see it and not something that's happening at the last minute, because we deserve as Tennesseans to be a part of this process just as much as the Tennessee state legislators.
Now, it wasn't that long ago that Democrats controlled the legislature, and I'm sure there'll be people that say, well, Democrats did this gerrymandering and they had their own way of doing things, and so now Republicans are in control and they should be able to do whatever they want to do. What do you say to that, and how? I guess Marianne Reeves. I mean, what do you say to that, and how much do we see that when Democrats were in control?
Gerrymandering is not the privy of any particular party. Even today in the United States, blue states do the same thing. And the leagues fight in blue states to try and get openness and transparency. Yes, you're correct. It's when the Democrats were in power, they did gerrymandering. When Republicans are in power, they are doing gerrymandering. It is becoming more complicated as the years go on, and mainly because our computer systems are so much more sophisticated. These maps can be drawn in very devious, sophisticated manners, and so it makes it a lot more difficult to navigate that system. That's why I agree with Kendra. It's very, very important that we have an open and transparent system that we can, as citizens, take a look at that and dissect that and provide feedback. And it's open to the public. It's open to news media as yourself.
Well, very good. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll come back and continue the discussion. Be back right after this.